This is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to the November series of 1 month to a more effective compliance program series that I'm running in 2017. This month, we're going to take a look at 1 month of 360 degrees of communication in compliance. This month's sponsor is Dun & Bradstreet. The only thing that is constant right now in the regulatory environment is change. Supply chain leaders and compliance professionals alike continue to struggle with how to best adequately identify, screen, and gain visibility into ownership structures of third parties and or customers so that they understand exactly who they are doing business with. Companies can knowingly finance goods that are potentially obtained illegally or sold on the black market. Procurement teams that are unaware of third-party activities and have antiquated systems, they put their company at risk. Without proper visibility, these teams could unknowingly be funding terrorism or even engaging in human trafficking. In-depth research is needed to identify ultimate beneficial owners and third-party risks. No business ties to corrupt practices such as human trafficking or money laundering is going to self-report, so companies must take this work on themselves and obtain third-party data needed to determine risk, mitigate exposure, and protect their brand and comply with regulations. Dun & Bradstreet offers an end-to-end comprehensive solution to help organizations tackle this exact complexity. Leverage Dun & Bradstreet's complete due diligence reporting to know your vendor and your third-party partners. Do not expose yourself to undue risk. Contact Dun & Bradstreet today to learn more about vendor onboarding, supply risk management, and comprehensive compliance check. This month I'm going to tackle the concept of 360 degrees of communication and compliance. We're going to take a look at it from a variety of ways and mechanisms. We're going to consider the Chief Compliance Officer and his or her role in communications. We're going to take a look at how you can facilitate a two-way conversation of communications while sitting in the CCO suite. We're going to consider some of the leadership and other components of a CCO's role and how they will help you have a more robust and indeed holistic approach to compliance. We're going to consider the bottom-up approach to communications by utilizing communications techniques for your employees, third parties, contractors, and those that may come into contractual relationship with your company through the supply chain. We're going to consider 360 degrees of communications through operationalization of compliance and culture. It's going to be a very interesting month. I think as a CCO, you will learn quite a bit. And at the end of the month, you will not only have information which will allow you to be a more well-rounded CCO, but bring a much more holistic approach to your compliance function. My year-long series of 1 month to a more effective compliance program and the November edition of 1 month of 360 degrees of communication and compliance are a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Day 15, Supply Chain and 360 degrees of communication in compliance. How can a Chief Compliance Officer use 360 degrees of communication with compliance stakeholders who are outside your organization? Obviously, the communications with the third parties about your compliance evaluation and program is a critical element for the compliance program success. Just as 360 degrees of communication is more than simply a two-way street of passing information, a more holistic approach is needed when dealing with third parties, as they can also be a key to more than simply adhering to a compliance program, but also providing back to you valuable information and modeling the culture you expect going forward. Yet, how can you achieve such a more holistic approach? Interestingly, this issue was explored in an article entitled The 5 Key Components for Supply Chain, where the authors began by asking, what does it take to create a meaningful innovation across supply chain partners? Their findings identified 5 components that are common to most successful supply chain innovative partnerships that derive from the 360-degree approach to communications. It is almost universally recognized that third parties are your highest compliance risk. But what if you could turn your supply chain from a liability under the FCPA or any other anti-corruption regime to an area that brings innovation to your compliance program? This is an area that not many compliance practitioners or professionals have mined. There are 5 keys to successful innovation spanning supply chain partners, and I'm going to take a look at those in the context of the compliance program. Number 1, don't settle for the status quo. You should not simply settle for the status quo. Innovation does not come from a customer or even in-house compliance practitioner. The key characteristics are to be cooperative, proactive, and incremental. You need to be leading the innovation change rather than catching up from behind. If a company in your supply chain can suggest a better method to do compliance, particularly through a technological solution, it may be something you may well consider. 2, hit the road to hit your metrics. To truly understand your compliance risk from all parties, you should get out of the ivory tower and onto the road. This is truer when exploring innovation. If you have not hit the road with the primary goal to be innovative through such interactions, innovation can come organically. There's little downside for a compliance practitioner to go and visit a supply chain or other third-party partner, or to have a face-to-face meeting simply to get to know the partner better and precisely identify the partner's compliance issues. 3, send prospectors, not auditors. While an audit clause is critical in any supply chain contract, both from a commercial and compliance perspective, too often firms use supply chain managers as auditors when they are dealing with supply chain partners. This is wrong, as you should consider these managers innovation partners and not auditors. Even every third party should have a relationship manager, whether that third party is in the supply chain or sales side of your business. Moreover, the innovation partners are able to see synergies where the business partners can work together for everyone involved, and that certainly applies to the compliance realm as well. You can see synergies where compliance can work together more closely with third parties and business partners. Number 4, show me yours and I'll show you mine. If there's been one key theme throughout this chapter this month, it has been trust. In the supply chain and the third-party arena, trust plays an important role in any innovation. Firms in successful innovations discuss a willingness to share resources and rewards to develop their partners' capabilities. Moreover, through the process of developing trust, firms understand their partners' strategic goals. I cannot think of a more applicable statement about compliance. Another way to consider this is if your partner has trust in you and your compliance program, they could be more willing to work with you on the prevent and detect prongs of a compliance regime. Top-down structures may well be counterproductive. And finally, number 5, who's running the show? This really means what is each side bringing to the relationship, both in terms of resources and capabilities. In the compliance regime, you could well lead your partner taking a greater role in managing compliance in the specific arena or down a certain set of vendors. Your local supply chain partners might be stronger in the local culture, which would allow it to lead collaborations by other vendors localized in anti-corruption networks or roundtables, or to help you move forward in doing business ethically and in compliance with relevant anti-bribery, anti-corruption laws. Finally, as a rule, utilization comes through innovation. Imagine if you could increase your compliance process performance by considering innovations from your third parties. From the 360-degree perspective, it could lead to trust and cultural alignment strengthen, leading to further innovation and improvement. Seeing what is needed in other partners to facilitate their role in compliance innovations, and both sides reaping rewards in a low-cost, low-risk, highly achievable manner. Your company's supply chain is literally there at your fingertips. Why not tap them in to a full 360-degree approach going forward? So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Well, Number one, use a 360-degree approach to communication in compliance that includes stakeholders outside of your organization. I've talked about the supply chain, but it also would work with your third-party partners on the sales side or your other business partners, business venture partners such as teaming agreements, alliance partners, joint venture partners, or others. 2, we laid out 5 keys to successfully innovation spanning your supply chain. These keys work equally as well for innovation in the compliance solution, so utilize all of those. Finally, remember that your third-party sales force, your supply chain, your business venture partners, they are literally there at your fingertips, so why not tap into them for a full or more well-rounded 360-degree approach to communications and compliance beyond simply your own employee base. This is Tom Fox. I hope you've enjoyed Day 15, and I hope you'll join me tomorrow for Day 16 of 1 month to 360 degrees of communication in compliance. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of 1 month to 360 days of communication and compliance. If you have listened to this podcast on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate it if you would rate our podcast, as it would help in our rankings and also help get the word out about the only daily compliance podcast involving the nuts and bolts of compliance. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Finally, I'd like to thank our sponsor for this month, Dun & Bradstreet. I hope you will join me tomorrow for another episode. The podcast series in November, 1 month to 360 degrees of communication, is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network.